All right, three, two, one, and we are live. How's it going, everybody? I am Tito Labine, and this is Tito Time, presented by Impulse Media. And joining me today, outside of the realm of trucks, still in the pro class, we have one of the top tier drivers. We didn't get an opportunity to see him last year or too much the year before that, but he himself is a pro buggy points champion. We have the number 94. We have the bubbler king himself. We have Michael Meister.
Hey, how's it going, Tito?
What's
Thanks
going
for having me
on?
on.
How's it going over there in Kronewetter?
Pretty good. We got a little dusting of snow this morning, and I think we're supposed to get some more. But all in all, it's been good. It's just now the last few weeks here, I've really starting to get into working on the race buggy and kind of getting really excited and getting prepped for Wheatland here. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, so I mean that was really cool. To hear from you is that you were going to be returning to the Champ Series in your pro buggy. I guess let's get into the extent of that. How long are you going to be returning? Is it going to be a race by race basis? Are you fully committed to the year? I guess kind of what is the game plan because we certainly missed you last year. And it was one of those where Pro Buggy was a highlight of the season. So I guess take it away, man. What are your plans for 2025?
Yeah, for sure. Last year it was bummer to be on the sideline, but all in all, it's been best for what the situations we got going on right now. But yeah, it's gonna be. I guess it'll break, or we'll be breaking it here. But I'm just gonna be doing like more of a partial schedule here this year. Yeah, I have sponsorship lined up to do Wheatland, Antigo, and both Crandons. And Wheatland just because of the we did it back when I think it was 2019 we or 18 we raced with the Lucas series there, and it was just such a blast. The venue was awesome. The racetrack obviously was great. And just everybody around that way. And then, say for Anago and Cranon, it's going to be where it's keeping it local for myself, whether it be saving a cost that way, then also with the sponsorship I have lined up. The majority of them are all localized here in my area. So this is the best bang for their buck. And yeah, I think it's going to be the best value that we got going on. And yeah, I guess we'll go from there. Like everybody's like, "Oh, if you're in the points or something, wouldn't you just keep going?" And I'm like, "Yeah, maybe," but I also got to think of kind of the reason that I stepped away is my wife and I now we got lots going on. We got land to build on. I'm really just trying to say for that, like it's me that kind of put the pause button on the buggy. And getting back into it, I understand why I did it now because it costs a lot of money. Like sponsorship's great, but it's never gonna amount to what everything costs to get back into it and to go racing. But I mean, I'm doing it because kind of fell in love with it, after getting into it, and it's gonna be a blast. Like with Caitlin, Brad, and now another buddy, Austin. He's going to be helping out this year, and it's a small team we have going on, um, and we haven't been in it. Well, I guess we've been in it a little longer than what I even think of, but it's not like we grew up doing this or anything. We just kind of fell into the buggy and kind of hit the ground running, and kind of went from there. We're learning along the way even yet now too.
Yeah.
Um,
So essentially is, if you're a driver out there, and you're at the top of your game, the only thing that's going to derail your career is happiness, is love, marriage, the woman of your dreams,
uh,
stuff like that, correct?
No, honestly, all that stuff was. I know you're joking. It was the pause button for me. Like,
Yeah.
like Caitlin, she's actually Mark Steinhardt's niece. So like she's been around it since she was a baby.
Yeah.
And so it's not like she's not pressuring me to do anything. It's more on me like, hey, like Michael here needs to put the pause button on things and do the saving of the money and honestly focus on other things. Like when I first got going, I was I have a very addictive personality. Like if I'm gonna do something, I can't half-ass anything. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna like go all in, full on in. I guess spend. I need, what I need to do. I guess to an extent. It's not like I'm making all kinds of money or anything to be able to do whatever I want. I mean, that's why I'm in the buggy. I can't afford to really move up. I guess at the moment. So. Yeah, it was just taking some time and focusing on just kind of saving money, and honestly, is focusing on our business. Our logging business is a family thing that my dad got going like 35 years ago, and then the last 10 years now, I've been involved with co-owning it, and really, it's just to really focus on that and just kind of run and we own and operate it, so we're actually in the machines running the equipment, and then we take care of all of the personal stuff with the landowners, and everything is done just myself and him and my dad, and it's a lot of work, but really I wouldn't want to have it any other way because we know it's done right. We're doing what's best as far as for the landowners on the logging side, and even honestly with the buggy, like I've been trying to, ever since I started, like all the pro buggy stuff at that point was like all my engines, my buggy was an Andy Zipper buggy,
Okay.
from, and it was a Lumicraft chassis out in California. So like all the components like Fortin for the transmission, like that's out in California, but now I have Ryan Stingle over in Black Creek. He's doing my transmission work. There's a engine builder out in California. Now I have Bob Burkos over in the Black Creek area. He's doing my engines now. And even like fabrication work, like Mikey Van in Hoovel and now a buddy, Tyler Some, there's a lot of people that do stuff in house close to home, and I've really and that's really cut down on costs that way. Like I remember shipping out my transmission in the past years, and you're talking hundreds of dollars just for the freight itself, throwing that thing in a wood crate box, and then their costs are obviously more. Um, and yeah, just trying to keep costs down that way. Like obviously stuff has to come from out west because of the short course stuff, and like car tech and all that jazz. But um, I've really tried to focus on utilizing people locally uh, for like the buggy stuff. Like even the shock stuff, like Dylan Parsons, he's been doing my shocks the last couple of years. Like it's great to utilize who's in the industry around here.
Yeah, and dude, and I think that that's a, and I don't mean to take away from, others and how they operate, from the East Coast or West Coast or whatever it may be. But, here in the Midwest, Wisconsin, there is a sense of community. There's a sense of, helping each other out, utilizing what you have around you. And I think you're doing an incredible job of doing that, and I don't know if other people do that or maybe they just don't say that or champion themselves enough. But, stuff like that is needed in order to, put yourself in a position to compete, this season or even just get out on the track. And I think it's very efficient as far as what you're doing. And it's funny too because I was actually going to bring this up. Is again, not to take away from anyone else's professions, but you loggers seem to be a different brand as far as like discipline, working hard, ethics, stuff like that. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm sure plenty of people work hard. I've done my fair share of. I used to manage a hotel, believe it or not, and I remember I had to be there at 7 a.m. and I was there till 1 a.m. cleaning rooms because we didn't have some housekeepers come in. And again, yeah, that's work, but that's not every day. That was kind of a one-off thing where, you don't want to put yourself in that position. But you loggers, in that industry, There's a lot of hard work there. There's a lot of heavy machines. There's a discipline. You guys seem to have that, mentality, especially, early on and young. And do you credit that to your position, or do you think that that's just kind of a Wisconsin family thing? Is it just a you thing, I guess?
No, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that you say it like that. No, absolutely, it is. It's discipline, but it's been learned also. Like when, say, I first got into the business, I didn't take it as seriously as I do now. Like I'm 30 now, and maybe the last 2 years, it's my mentality and my focus has really shifted. Like, at first, like say just going back to the racing here, like when I got into it, like I was like, well, I was like 21 and I was thinking, this could be something that I could be doing uh for like a wow, for like a living or doing like more, that it would be more serious or something like that. And this, honestly, it's just, some people are very fortunate to be doing this as a living and doing the racing and everything, but uh obviously that's just it's not going to work out for myself, and need to focus on what actually makes me money, and that's with our business. But yeah, when as far as going back with the business, it's where uh I was kind of put into a place where, out of high school, um I was kind of in between things. I did go to college for a little bit, at the Marathon County in Wausau here, and trying to do like just the basic stuff at first, and then in the middle, like during that winter break, when we had like that month off, my dad was like, "Hey, why don't you come hop in the processor?" After the guy that was working for him was done for the day. So I was like, "All right, no, that sounds good." As I was growing up and stuff, I always like say after school or something, I go ride with my dad, and so I was around it a little bit. It's not like I was completely out of it, so I kind of knew a little bit of what was going on and just kind of the machinery side of things. And honestly, I just kind of fell in love with it. Just being outdoors. And honestly, a lot of it now is working with my dad. It gets better and better. Like we work so damn well together now. And being that we're out in the woods alone, uh, we really have only us to utilize and rely on. Like there's help. We run the Ponzi equipment. That's kind of how that relationship is. Like for my racing, Ponzi equipment. That's the equipment that we run for our business. And they have a great handful of people that I can pick up my phone and give a call, like to diagnose issues or something. But really, 95% of the stuff comes back on us, like for just daily maintenance, or actually when we have a breakdown, or just kind of just on the day-to-day thing. Like I've had to learn how to weld on the machines. I've had to learn how to be, say, an electrician, as far as all the wiring involved, just the mechanics on it, all the hydraulic systems, and it it takes a lot to keep these machines going. Just a couple of weeks ago, we had a big breakdown, and it took a week to kind of piece together things and kind of figure out things. But now the machine's back up and running really nice, and it's a lot fresher, uh, like it was when it was new now too. But just kind of the focus on things like where uh, you just are pressured into doing it the right way. I guess when I was in that situation where I was going to school, maybe going into the business type of thing, it was at the same time that my parents were separated, and my mom kind of I don't have a relationship with my mom anymore. It was where she pushed me away. She said, "You're going to ruin your life if you go into the family business." And ever since then, I don't need any motivation or nothing anybody can say will give me more motivation than what happened there. So even like the little things you hear on the racetrack, like "oh, Meister's a cheater," or like "Dad pays his own way" or something like that, and like they don't have a clue. So when we first started, uh, we started with nothing. We were living out of a shitty condo, and we worked hard. It was where you left the condo, went to go work, and that was where I decided to go into it full time then. And we didn't have any money saved or anything, and it was where you went to work before daylight. You came home like at 11, 10 o'clock. You did that day after day, 7 days a week, and it was good markets then too. Like the markets, as far as the last 4 years and stuff since COVID, that's really changed our logging industry. And I guess that's for a different day as far as talking about that, say. But it is what it is right now. We're able to kind of get rid of everything that we harvest and deal with. But back then we made a little bit of money, and that's kind of where we were able to save up and get what we needed. I was able to get an awesome house at that point, and obviously I was living there too, and just kind of build back the business from there. It was where the machines were old at that time. I think the harvester I was running, was like 12 years old. They go by hours, like on a vehicle instead of mileage. You
Okay.
got 100,000 miles on a vehicle. Like that machine, it goes by hours. So it had like 24,000 hours on it, and like they're just beaten
Yes.
and battered, and it's hard to rely on something when you're working on it more than you're actually profiting and cutting trees down. So, yeah, it was where now uh, you just kind of rotate out the machines a little faster than, because we learned from that mistake then. And then you trade in the machine for a new one at Ponce, and they obviously give you a little money, just like a vehicle. And but now we just kind of rotate faster or earlier. So it's like every 5 years, say, we try to rotate the machines out. But it's just been where literally we were at the bottom back in like 2014. We didn't have anything, and so I've been down that road, and now we're on the other side, and it's crazy to chat like with Caitlin or even my dad on things like really what happened back then,
Yeah.
and the pressures that it took, and the work ethic, and even now, uh, during the winter we run 7 days a week. We're in the machines, and we're just trying to get as much done as possible. And this year, especially with the frozen ground, like a lot of our industry is based on the condition or the weather conditions outside. So in the springtime here, we have a little time and stuff. So, but yeah, it's just kind of a process that it took to learn that work ethic, and now I utilize it in everything that I do. Everything that I try to do, I want to do 100%. And now it's where I put too much on my plate. And but I don't know. I guess it's a good thing to have the addiction and everything.
So, and that was something then I was gonna, kind of bring up as well is, do you take some of these, life lessons, life experiences, kind of some of the stuff you've been through, and apply it, to your race program, to yourself, maybe to your team, because I mean, again, everybody obviously learns in their own way or has experiences that grow up and maybe they apply it to different situations to their life. But I mean, it sounds like there's a lot to learn and a lot that you can apply, to your race program. I mean, like you said, especially trying to be efficient with, a lot of your sponsors and a lot that goes into, the buggy. Do you take some of those things and apply it?
Oh, absolutely. So, like even before I got into the racing, before I got into the business on the logging side, like I had no mechanical experience whatsoever. Like I went to um I didn't go to a school that offered like the wood class or metal shop or anything like that. Like we had nothing. It was just based on books. So, since being in the business, I was able to apply and just learn and kind of just grow all the experiences that were needed. And then obviously getting into the racing in 2016, yeah, and that even escalated it even more. But really, I got to contribute a lot to the people that were around at the beginning, and honestly, now for the racing too. Like, uh, what ended up happening was, I started in the radio controlled, the RC side of racing before I got into the actual off road here. So that was kind of like growing some people. Like it was even people from. So my dad's originally from Crandon, so like he knew like Whitey Brownell, like Richie Cooloff, Faye Stetson, the list, of everybody
Yep.
involved at the Crandon racetrack. And at that time we were uh, we went to the off road races at that time. Before I got into the actual, and that's when Traxxas was really involved in the whole situation there. And we bought a four-wheel drive RC car, and then I believe it was the next week we went RC racing when it was actually had a when the Crandon Off Road actually had the RC series going on, and just kind of fell into it that way. But then I guess snowballing a few years later, uh, everybody was like, "Hey, Michael, there's this guy that has a couple of these buggies for sale. Like, would you guys be interested?" Type of thing. And yeah, I guess long story short, we ended up buying two of them from Andy, and we met. I don't even know necessarily how it came about now, but it was where got into contact with Mark Steinhardt. We were like, "Hey, would you be interested in kind of like mentoring me or kind of helping out if we were to do this situation?" And you'd race the other buggy type of thing. And that was, I think, I don't want to speak for him and his like what he had going on at that point. But it was like he was doing the single buggy, 1600 single buggy, and it was he was like wanting to make sure like, hey, is this because he's just like me, where he's I guess has that addiction and he wants to do well and have the right. He wants to have the right like products and everything lined up for him to compete well because he's a hell of a competitor, obviously,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
um just to make sure that hey, this program would work. And oh, everything went well for the most part that first year. Like we both did well, um, and then it snowballed from there, obviously. And my buggy now is the same buggy that I've had since the beginning, and we've just learned to upgrade it and I guess get with the right people. Like that first year, I had a guy helping out that had worked at the chassis builder in the past years, so he did some upgrades to it because my chassis, she's old. She's like 2011, 2012 chassis.
Damn.
Um, so it was where you just kind of update as we go on here. Like obviously, bums like me where you wreck occasionally and break stuff. Like well, you gotta fix that back together and piece it together and whatnot. So, but yeah, it's really everybody involved that makes my program the success that we've had. Like I just sit in the thing, push the gas pedal like an idiot, and and try to do well. But it's everybody else, like even my buddy Brad. Like all we've had is the RC experience, but there's a lot of components and like setup changes that kind of corresponds to the off-road or different ideas and stuff that we kind of bounce off each other. So it's worked out really well that way. And then everybody else involved throughout the years, it's been an effort from everybody.
Yeah, so I know you had you talked about the RC racing, and has that kind of quelled your fix? You know what I mean? Has that kind of given you the racing fix that you need? Kind of while you've been away, or at least haven't been able to do it full time. So have you kind of then really started to lean into RC racing a little bit more? I mean, obviously that's kind of, I don't want to say that's where you started, but so long ago, it's where you've kind of had your time and efforts into, and the RC scene, man, is Jeffrey's gotten into it, man, and I'm starting to hear and see a lot more people that do it, and I think that's awesome, man. I think that's great. It's another form of racing during the winter time when you can't necessarily, get out and actually race. So I mean, RC racing, man. I think the big question is, can some of these RC drivers, if given the opportunity, do you think that they could wheel and deal inside an actual vehicle? It doesn't have to necessarily be like a Pro 4, but given a correlation of of how precise you have to be on an RC track, do you think that they could succeed or at least survive in a champ race in some of the classes?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why not. I guess the main thing is somebody able to, like it costs a good amount of money to go RC racing, and then the off road is obviously just like, tenfold, where it's just like, anything can happen and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, I think the dedication and the work ethic in the RC kind of would translate into the off road and what somebody would need. I mean, you got little tools for the RC cars, but you still have to have the mechanics and knowledge and kind of uh, learn as you go with that. Just like this, it just kind of is obviously on a bigger scale. But yeah, I think absolutely. Like it's cool to see. Like I don't do the RC racing as much as I'd like to. A couple weeks ago was the first time that I went the dirt clay racing, probably for 6 years. And man, the nerves were so crazy. Tito, it was like being on the line at Crandon Land Rush. It's where you're just like nervous up there, shaking. Like my legs and my hands were shaking up on the driver's stand for the RC race, and then I kind of settled in once, kind of got some laps under my belt, and kind of quit worrying about what's people thinking about me right now or watching whatnot. But then kind of things came together towards the end, and it was really enjoyable. It was great to see people, and even now it was over in Green Bay, the RC race, and it's cool to see all the short course people, like the actual short course people racing RC cars now.
Yeah.
Like Luke Alcox on and Corey Greaves and Matt Gerald and everybody else like Josh Schuderman and just every all kinds of classes. Um, and it's cool to see because it gives these guys something to like race and compete and kind of wrench on during the winter when it's off season for the short course. So that's awesome, and hopefully I can do more of that, say next winter or something. And
So
I look forward to that.
and also interesting fun fact too is your essentially your head mechanic, your crew chief, right? You said your buddy Brad Scherer. He also races RC as well. And what's that dynamic like between you two? Not only when it comes to your buggy program and blaming him for everything. But no, I'm just playing. I'm just playing. No, that dynamic between you and Brad, between kind of that head mechanic and you, but then also when it comes to RC racing, because from what I understand, Brad's pretty good, and from what I understand, is you're pretty damn good too. So it's like an opportunity to see you two on the track at the same time, but in a different discipline, I guess.
Oh, for sure. Brad is like he got into the RC racing like with his dad when he was just a kid. I forgot what he had said. Was it maybe it was like 8 years old or something. So he's been doing it for a long while. But
Yeah.
he's really good on the setup. setup stuff, as far as the RC racing goes. Like he, you tell him like, hey, or honestly, he's washing your car out on a track, and he's like, all right, we need to do this, change this, make adjustments, whatever, and he just kind of knows just from his years of experience, and and the cars change every couple of years too, so you got to learn different setups from model to model, brand to brand. And yeah, I mean, it was great to be pitted with him, and Jeffrey was there in our little box of tables too. And between another guy, Skip, and Brad, it's so helpful for them to be there and kind of bounce ideas around and kind of have that knowledge of people that do it more on a regular basis. Um, and then Jeffrey and I were just out there learning and trying to not bump the tubes and flip over and try to do well. And it's cool to see Jeffrey and do it now too. But yeah, Brad is he's been really helpful. It's been a cool dynamic for us to get into the off-road side of things. Like, when we started, both of us, we didn't know anything. And it's been where you just kind of, well, we've been in it long enough now to where we've made the mistakes, tried different things. We know what works, we know what doesn't work. Obviously, there's always more to try out, from race to race. And yeah, it's where it's just kind of like a learning process that way. And um, no, it's good people in my corner now, and it should just be better and better as time goes on.
Yeah. So I mean, at the end of the day, then, how much blame is it on Brad when it? No, I'm just kidding. I I think since I've been doing this, and I do think it's obviously a bit of a shame, but since I've been doing this, your and Brad's dynamic is probably my favorite. As far as like everything since I've started doing this. Like I know, like you're right. I've been around, Keegan, CJ, Corey. A lot of these guys that I've been friends with for a long time, or having to got to know a little bit more since I started doing this. I don't know. There's just something about you two that like meshes really well, and you guys have a really good understanding of each other. And again, I know everything's not perfect, but I think it's just I don't know. I think it goes. I think it goes really well, and I think I've was super lucky to have met you guys. I think we are at ERX. Maybe was the first time that I um, got to meet you, and it was it's because Jeffrey. He was like, man, he's like, I'm kind of tired right now, and I'm like, well, what you thinking? He goes, we should get a bubbler. I'm like, oh man,
Yeah.
I'm like, man, they sell those here? And he's like, no, no. He's like, I know a guy. And I was like, okay. So then we got in the UTV and drove on over. And he's like, yeah. He's like, Michael Meister. And I was like, oh, the Jet Lawrence of Pro Buggy.
Ah,
And he's
geez.
like, yeah. And I'm like, okay. So we go over and then I got a chance to meet you guys. And dude, I thought it was so great, man. So I mean, it was really cool. And I don't know if I've ever told you that, but it's something I've always wanted to say was, it was cool to meet you guys, see your guys' dynamic and continued dynamic. And again, I'm stoked for you guys to be back this year. But I mean, I think that's another thing I had wanted to ask you about when it came to like your guys' program, I guess, was I think, and don't take this the wrong way, but you were, kind of at the top of your game when it came to pro buggy, and it was like Michael Meister, Michael Meister, Michael Meister, Michael Meister, and it's like, all right, like pro buggy's coming out, we know who's winning, right? You were kind of the CJ of pro stock, and it was just such a shame, like the timing of everything, right? It's like, all right, hey, like you said, you need to step away, which I think I'd love to kind of maybe dive into just a little bit more. Um, but when you had stepped away, it's like that was kind of when pro buggy started to get a little bit more hot, and I don't know if just the burn lowers just weren't there yet, and Bonacci came in this year. Davey Mason Jr. brought in a pro buggy. There was just a lot more contenders that started to kind of step in and make pro buggy fun to watch. But I think before we kind of get into that aspect of things, I guess the reason you stepped away, obviously, finances and the cost of everything. But something that Keegan has talked about and alluded to was, kind of the mental well being, the mental health, kind of where you're at in your mind. Was that another kind of aspect of it too? Because he said it. RJ has said it. Even Corey Winter has said it. As far as like, hey, sometimes I got to step away, or I have to kind of reevaluate on how I'm approaching this season because it's starting to be a little mentally detrimental.
Yeah, I guess to begin with, I appreciate what you said about like I guess Brad and I dynamic. It's funny to hear like it compared to like all these other pro classes like these like a lot of these guys like say do it for a living or do it under like a lot more than what we got going on over here. But no, that's it's great. Like it's um where we just try our best and kind of throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks sometimes too. It all depends. But yeah, the class it kind of it is what it was on as far as like the people coming in and the class being what it was like last year. It was difficult to sit on the sidelines at that point, like where I knew like, oh my goodness, this was a class to watch, say for a weekend of racing at the track wherever they went. And that's awesome to see because I was in it like when I first started in the class, some of the races there's only 6, 8 cars,
Yeah, yeah.
and it was, and I'd love to say like I hope that my part in being in the class back then kind of sprinkled into what we kind of got going on now, like where it kind of rejuvenated things and I hope like what we were talking about before, where to get costs down on stuff like you don't need to be going to like these big companies and spending all kinds of money on these engines and all this program stuff. Like you can kind of get away with utilizing somebody more localized and saving some money that way too. So I hope that has played into some people's programs. And I always say pro buggy is like the working man's pro class. Like obviously we've kind of flipped back and forth between pro class, sportsman class, whatever it is. But the we're our buggies are very capable. A lot of the times uh, our buggies are one of the fastest on the racetrack. Aside from say Pro Turbo and the Pro Force. We're throwing down hot laps, faster than some of the truck classes. It just doesn't sound like that. You don't got that 8-cylinder power. But yeah, it's where, yeah, it's great to have all the guys like out west now. All the guys coming from out west, Bernlauers and Mason, Lorenzo, like Shaden, all these guys, and obviously all the local guys too. Like Billy and Mark and Ryan. You know, everybody involved is just stepping up their game year after year, and me getting back into it now. Uh, uh, it's going to be tough to get on the podium. I feel like it's where I'm gonna try to bust my butt and do what I can, but honestly, it's gonna be tough, and I look forward to it too. It's gonna be fun to race against different people that I haven't raced with. Like I haven't raced with Lorenzo, I haven't raced with Jaden. I guess David also. Um, so yeah, it'll be a fun thing to get back into. It'll be fun for the class to. It should be one to watch. I think so. Like and yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, we can we'll get into last year a little bit. Uh, from what I understand is, unfortunately, I don't think Lorenzo Bonacci will be around full time this year. I'd love to see him to try to come out to Fall Crandon and kind of be there. Um, I feel like last Fall Crandon was definitely a good heavyweight showdown of the who's who of pro buggy. I mean, were you there? Did you watch the pro light pro buggy cup race?
Yeah, yeah, we were there.
So I was I think I was on the infield, and I think the year before Pro Light had won it kind of basically by the last lap, which I mean was about, for the first time, was pretty close. I mean, the way you time that up is pretty close.
Hmm.
And then this year the pro buggies just kind of ran away from it. I think some of the pro lights kind of got into themselves and kind of screwed it for themselves. But I remember seeing like Steiny and then Tony Keepers and then Davey Mason up there, and I'm like, what is happening? I'm like, there's no burn lowers, there's no Bonacci, like there's no, like the usual suspects weren't up there, and I'm like Steiny, man, I'm like, what year is it? And so that was cool to see, like those top three, like not only were they just ahead in the lead, but they were gapped between the next like fourth place buggy, and it was so cool to see. And then even like pro light, like Milhausen was like the leading pro light, and you're thinking like, okay, well, this is Trey Gibbs' race to win, and bro was not even in the picture. So I think that's a race I think I would love to continue to see. I'm excited to see you in it, and again, we can kind of get into that into the future. But I think for last year, where do you think you would put yourself had you raced the full year? And again, I know it's probably a biased question, right? You're like, oh, dude, like, you want to put yourself at the top. I probably would have put you top. I think a surefire thing for me would be a top three in points. I think would be surefire. I think very arguable that if you went full season would be a points championship. The only reason I would maybe not have picked you was just some of the luck, unfortunately, you had the year before that, where then you're unsure, right? You're always like, hey, you're only as good as your last race, right? But where do you think you would have stacked up had you been able to go full time last year? I mean, I'm not necessarily saying that you have, an exorbitant budget, but let's say again, you made every race, racing how you normally race. Where do you think you would have stacked up?
Yeah, it's hard to. I don't like to gas myself up or like try to like, oh yeah, I would have been up there, Tito, or I would have been winning all these races. Like, I guess I don't have that mentality with myself. Like, I know the competition's stacked, and I know there's everybody else is trying to do as well as me. But yeah, I mean, I would love to say like, yeah, I think we would have been on the podium a number of times and done well. Like, I think there was a number of was there like six or seven race winners last year? Like, that was amazing. Like, I would have hoped to say notch my name and made it another name for a win last year. If we're just speaking hypothetical here, so. Yeah, and then if things went well and like the previous year in 2023, like everything that could have happened to me. It seemed
Yeah.
like from weekend after weekend, and so if everything would have been somewhat smooth or at least even partially, yeah, I would have hoped to have been say a top five for a points championship. Absolutely. Like if you're consistently going out there and racing, I think I think that might have been safe to say. Um, but yeah, I guess looking back on my last full season, like it went downhill fast, and yeah, it was bad. It started right from the beginning. The first race in Anago, something happened where I had a new wire harness and for my engine on my buggy, and it was running goofy. And what ended up happening was the fuel pump actually didn't kick in at this be like when we were firing up the cars to go out onto the track.
Yeah.
And it, you know, all those guys like Richie and Whitey, like they were like, what the heck can we do? Can we like try to pull you and you drop the clutch type of thing to like get you at least rolling and try to fire it up?" And they tried. I mean, they literally pulled me out onto the track. Like they were busting their butts to try to help me out and get on the track. And it was just the fact where the fuel pump, like there wasn't fuel going to the engine or anything to even attempt that, unfortunately. But then when after the race, I watched I watched the race from in Whitey's safety truck.
Yeah.
Um, and
Oh, man.
that was the absolute worst because that's when, uh, there was a lot of good drivers and everybody was doing really well in 23 also. And I would have hoped to been in that mix immediately. And that just put me at a detriment and down the line immediately after that first race. And then once I got back in the pits, I was just tearing into the wiring or just looking for something. And
Yeah.
after a few minutes, I ended up finding on like the main connector that goes from my engine harness to my main harness of the buggy. One of the little pins, like there's I don't know, like a 30 pin connector that couples into each other. One of the little pins wasn't fully pulled out on the one end, so it wasn't making contact. Like something so goofy.
Yeah.
But honestly, for that year, what could have gone wrong or something random did happen. And whether it was my fault or just something random that happened.
Or
Yeah.
Brad's fault.
I don't even no, I don't even think he didn't do anything wrong. He
Uh,
I'll tell you this one, or unless you want to dive into the whole season like weekend to weekend or whatever, but at Dirt City that in 23, I was a real idiot. I I don't
uh,
know. Oh, so it was actually like the practice tech day or whatever. I was having battery issues,
yeah.
and it was just where my battery took crap, and I was actually like for the mounting of the battery in the buggy, I grabbed the angle grinder and I was cutting out some tabs to be able to put my old style battery back in the buggy. And I had or I was thinking nothing of it. I was just grinding away some tack weld because I had put little bracing for a little lipo battery to my bigger style just to get me through the weekend type of thing. So I
Yeah.
was just cutting a couple tabs and not knowing anything. And then the next race, the next day, my power steering line blew apart. And I just chalked it up to
Bad luck.
it just, yeah, bad luck. It just blew apart for whatever reason. And then when you get back to the pit, you look under the hood. "Oh, there's a cut mark here." So so I
Oh,
nicked it a little bit.
man.
Um, but yeah, it was just goofy things. A lot of the things were not under my own power. Some of them like that at Dirt City were. It was what it was then. I just tried to keep a good attitude. Like there's zero reason to get all mad and frustrated. Like I guess I've learned going back to the business where, you know, you got this piece of equipment or you got this buggy, like you just got to try to get the thing back working correctly. Just focus it. As I've gotten older, it's just where I try not to get as worked up as I once did, say when I was younger, and maybe that's just me growing older and wiser. Well,
Yeah.
I'm not that wise, but uh but yeah, trying to just trying to learn and I guess do what you can to keep things rolling.
And I wonder if that's just, kind of racer experience is like you said, right? Is that you don't want to be as worked up as maybe you used to be. but you also don't want to like present this like I don't give a shit kind of mentality. You know what I mean? It's kind of one of those where you just got to chalk it up to. I always use the analogy, right? You hit a great tee shot, and then your second shot you flub it or you chunk it or it's just a dog shit shot that goes off to the right. Yeah, sure, you can be upset about it, but then at the end of the day, it's like, okay, well, you still like what the next shot, right?
Mm,
You gotta focus on, what's ahead of you. You gotta focus on the situation. Like what's done is done. Like you can't change it. I mean, you can with an eraser, or you can redo it again with a mulligan, but that's not how life works. Like you got to
right.
be able to focus on what's next, and what's done is done, and that's something that it's taken me a long time to understand with golf, but it's like, hey, what's done is done. Let's focus on, what's next. Did that season kind of did that ever test your guys's dynamic at all? Like with you and Brad? Just because it was such a frustrating season, and I know other drivers have had, frustrating seasons. And because the only reason I ask is because a lot of drivers always want to present that, right? It's always happy hunky dory. People think too that at times that everyone here at Impulse, me, Lyle, and Jeffrey, like all we do is just laugh and joke around, and like we're never upset with each other. Sure, there are times where Jeffrey's been upset with me, where it's to the point. Fall Crandon, I remember he couldn't even talk to me. He had to tell Lyle, like, dude, you got to talk to him this weekend. Like, there's nothing that I can say that's going to change his mindset or whatever it may be. And it was a rough patch. Like we kind of had to talk it out on Sunday night after all the races were done. There've been times where Jeffrey and Lyle are mad at each other. I don't think I've ever been upset with Lyle, but there are dynamics, where there is, camaraderie of brotherhood where you do get upset with each other. It's not perfect, but did that season ever push that sense of like dynamic or brotherhood or whatever it may be, just because of everything that was happening?
Yeah, I guess I'm pretty myself, I'm pretty easygoing, and it was just where you just I guess you just kind of took it day by day, like as far as like, say something happened this race weekend, and then all right, we learned from that, or we've got that fixed hopefully, and went on to there. But I think as the season went on, I looking back on it now and talking with Brad, he was like, I had some frustrations, like uh where he was like, we need to get this shit fixed. Like, I'm tired of this, because he wants to be successful and do
Yeah.
just as well as me. Like everybody involved in the program, like uh they want to win or do well just like me. Like it's not where you kind of are just mailing it in. So yeah, I think at that time, I guess not necessarily where, or at least Brad didn't show it to me, or I'm not saying like, yeah, Brad's was like, I don't know, it was where it just got tiresome weekend after
Oh
weekend.
yeah.
Like me looking back onto it now, I mean, it was obviously tiresome for me. Like the amount of like fortunately for me, I don't go to a job where I have like, like the 9 to 5, or where you have set schedules, to
Yeah.
where like I was able to, it would have been, so I blew up my motor in spring Crandon, and it was goofy things happening after that, and we were having all kinds of engine issues before ERX, and I was 98% not going. Actually, I was telling people, yeah, I wasn't going to ERX. Like it wasn't happening. The things weren't getting figured out. And it was just so much time and effort that I was taking my buggy over to Beyond Redline in Green Bay, and dealing with the engine builder, and just trying to figure things out, and just trying to diagnose what's going on. And uh looking back onto it now, it was a lot of time and effort, and uh I guess looking back on it, it's where I'm thankful that I have the learning opportunity, or I was able to learn from it, and I can take that knowledge of what I learned and kind of base it on everything as I go now. But it was a lot. It took away from the business, if we're being honest here.
Yeah.
Like, it was where I didn't have wood on the ground. Wood wasn't coming out of the woods at times. And to be honest, if it were to happen again, I think the buggy would have to be put on the sideline. It's where our primary focus is the business. And, let's hope it doesn't get to that again, obviously. But,
Yeah.
because this is something that we should be doing for fun, but it takes it to where it gets very serious, like when it comes to the cost, when it comes to just trying to diagnose issues or trying to get things figured out with everybody involved in my program. And no, it was a difficult thing throughout that year. And but no, we just kind of focused on, and uh, we had obviously all the bumps in the road that last season, but it was also where we were having success, or like good races here and there. Getting on the podium, I think it would have been at Dirt City then. That was I don't know if I got second or third no, actually, I just got on the podium. I made a pass for the podium on the last lap. And that was the greatest feeling ever because we were just getting beat down with everything that you could throw at somebody for the last like 3 weekends before that. And it was the greatest feeling to like, all right, we're moving in the right steps and
Yeah.
the right direction. And even Bark River then, it was successful. Well, until it wasn't. Like we got on the
Oh
uh,
man, as soon as you said Bark River, I was
uh,
trying so hard to hold back, like, and not to smile at it, but I knew what had happened, and man,
mhm.
yeah. So
Yeah. Well, now looking back on it, you kind of have to just smile and like, man, that was some shit back then.
oh man,
That was bad.
brutal.
Like the first day we got on the podium right behind Jordan, and he got a win there, and then the next day, I forgot what. Oh, the next day, so like Sunday's race, it was where I was, I believe, in third coming around, and then the corner that I crashed on, that right by the grandstands that goes back into the back loop.
Yeah,
Uh, One of the leader got sideways. Second place got into him. I got collected into that guy, and then we had to get. I don't know if we had to get untangled or it just caused a caution, obviously. And so then I started in the back.
yep,
And I don't know if I had any. I think I did have actually damage, something with my front arms. Looking back on it now, just a little bend in my front arms. And then the race gets back going after the caution, and I gotta think now. Something else happened to where my hood, my fiberglass hood, flipped up in my face. And, you see it all the time, like on the race trucks, like where guys are driving right in with the fiberglass hood lifting up, but like my buggy ones, like it's got four tabs that are welded or that are fastened on my hood, and then you're right in the middle of it. Like there's
yeah.
not any way to like look side to side. Like it was in my face. Like it was. So I ran into the pits for that, and they ripped that fiberglass hood. I felt like I was truck racing at that point. I was like, they were trying to like try to get the tabs, and I was like, just rip it off, and
Yeah,
that was awesome. Like that was where like Lemke's crew guys, like Steve Hawkers, and maybe even Billy's team and stuff like was in there because like my guys, like Brad's up there spotting for me, and then it's Brad and Caitlin that are on my team, and now I have another buddy, Austin, that's involved. So I don't know if we'll have to figure out, I guess, hot pits or whatever for say in the future racing here or whatever, or
yeah,
team up with somebody else. But yeah, it was where they got that ripped off, thankfully, from the other guys on different teams, and then we got going back out there and. Now, some people have said that I wasn't on the lead lap, but from my timing and scoring and everything, I have it to where I was still on the lead lap just based on the cautions and everything. So I was pretty. Did I get a? Oh, did I get a? Mm, that first one, I got a flat tire, I believe. So they changed a flat tire. It was, I believe, a front. So that was another thing. So I was in the pits twice before that for that Sunday race at Bark River, and then so I was just constantly starting from the back,
Yeah.
and then I think there was still a mandatory caution, and I think that was one of the times where I was pretty hot to, um, like very motivated, mad at what the situations were going on. I was very motivated to get up front or try to get up front. And I was making passes like it was going well.
Yeah.
Um, and then I, I don't even know what I was in, like maybe fourth or fifth at that point. That same corner right by the grandstands, I got too sideways, got too much lift in the air, and I came down too sideways, and it just caught, and I took a heck of a tumble and roll, and caused all kinds of damage. I'll never forget getting. Thankfully, I was fine. Like all my safety stuff, all my impact safety gear, and everything kept me protected inside. Like I really don't think I have too many bruises. Maybe I had a couple bruises like from my knees hitting something or my hands, whatever. But I just remember getting out and everybody was, coming to the rescue there and just looking behind me like the mess that I had for my buggy.
Yeah. The yard
Like
sale.
it was the most defeated feeling I ever felt racing so far. Like I just immediately I think a lot with cost because I don't know. Finances are pretty big for me in the last few years, like just trying to save, or I got some this money going here or whatever. So I was just thinking immediately costs for things like, oh my God, this is gonna cost some money to fix.
Yeah.
And I guess all in all, we got it back to the pits, and we're just kind of going through it, and everybody was kind of rubbernecking, turning like, "Oh my God!" They had to come check it out, And I understand it. I didn't want to talk to a damn person.
Yeah.
Uh,
I don't blame you.
Caitlin, Caitlin was absolutely furious with me that I put myself into that situation, and I get it. I mean, I was pushing hard.
Yeah.
Uh, I did something stupid, and I guess I took that price, or I paid the price. So that was a tough afternoon for sure, and just kind of, and at that point, it was just kind of tearing the thing down, or tearing the awning down, kind of getting things back into the trailer to figure it out. I got checked out at the ambulance after a few minutes because things weren't feeling the greatest, but everything checked out at least, so I was thankful for that. But yeah, just trying to get everything back in the trailer and I guess go from there. And then on the way home, I got a text message from Mikey Vandenhoevel. He was like, if there's anything you need, I'm here for you, or let me help you. Like
Yeah.
just a complete open book for him. Like, if you're down, I'm down type of thing. Like, and
Yeah.
that was where there's 2 weeks in between for fall Cranon or something
Yeah.
ridiculously,
Yeah.
obviously, for the
Realistically,
schedule.
2.5 weeks. I mean,
Yeah.
because you got to show up on Wednesday essentially, and
Right.
now yeah,
Yep.
there's the travel day back. So by the time you even get it out, it's maybe Monday afternoon. So
Yep.
really, two weeks in a day. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. I think I would have gotten it out probably that Sunday later. And just, at that point, I was just like, all right, let me see. Like, I guess I wasn't into it. I was ready to hang her up. Like, this is enough's enough for 1 year. And yeah, so I was just taking pictures on of the buggy and like sending them like, all right, this is kind of what we had going on here. And I guess all said and done, it ended up where I kind of took I washed it up. I took, things apart that I could do on my own. Um And then probably it would have been like, I don't know, within a couple of days, like maybe it was like that Tuesday or Wednesday, like real quickly, I got that thing over to Mikey's shop in Appleton area there, and we I guess just kind of hit the ground running on trying to figure out what the heck we need to do. And fortunately, uh, I had enough spares for myself on the car. Like both of my rear arms, and those are heavy duty plated rear arms. Like both of those were junk. I mean, I'm trying to think. Like my steering rack was all I guess going from front to back, we can do it. My steering rack was all mangled up. Majority of my front arms, probably the spindles, wheels, like my aluminum wheels. Let's see, fiberglass, like that's not too big a deal on the body. My roof was all tacoed. Um, then like going back to the rear end, like the arms were just both complete. The one was broken in half. The one was bent in half, dang near. Um, let's see, and then the engine or the transmission, the for on our buggies, the engines mount to the transmission with four studs that slide into the transmission case.
Hmm.
So and then it has reinforcement like off of the chassis, for bracing and stuff that way. But my engine was sideways in the car, kind of. It completely ripped the transmission case out of the bolt holes and mounting. So the case was junk. The engine air intake was ripped off, and then the some of the mounting and my alternator and all kinds of other stuff on the engine were junk. Um, and then like say the chassis components like the rear cage and the rear arm mounts, like the tabbing that you bolt the arms to, those were ripped out on one side. All kinds of tubing and chassis and rear cage on the rear end, that was all bent and mangled. So yeah, I thankful very much for Mikey Vandenhoevel on that one. Like he saved my butt, and he helped me out graciously. And it was where, so like I'm in the Wausau area and he's over in Appleton. It was where uh, every day after work, like say I got done, I left like an hour earlier, so like 4:35, or I left a little earlier and ran over there every single day. Um, so like it was where Mikey and Brad was able to take some days off during that time, and I'm very thankful for him because I think he was a big help to Mikey at that time. Like there was zero tabbing left on the rear end of the car pretty much. And like Brad has said, like there it was just days like where you just kind of had to bolt and unbolt things or just make sure everything was lined up, and they worked really well together that way, I believe. And so much went into just making sure to put the car back pretty much straight, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
so yeah, I was over there every night for like that 2 weeks long till a lot of the times it was like 2 in the morning. Then I go home, drive that hour and a half back home, and do it all over again. But it it was an interesting time. Like I wouldn't say it was the worst thing. Like it was where you're pressured into, like I decided to get this thing back together for Kren, and I was darn near gonna do it.
Yeah.
And I was focused and dedicated to do it at that time, and it was, we made it happen. It was really nice that way. But yeah, it was a lot of hours, obviously more than like a normal day to day or a normal weekend to weekend race, obviously. And but I'm very thankful for everybody involved in that. It was awesome, just even like uh, some of my shocks got all bent up, and Dylan was able to fix those. He just kind of took them off the car and he did them on his own. Like everybody, there's a lot of people that just helped me. Like I'm very thankful for that. Like it was where I didn't even ask some people. They were just like, "Hey, I'm gonna help you,"
Yeah.
and I'm very thankful for everybody that was involved at that point, and honestly, I'm very thankful for everybody that's involved in the program, just in a year to year thing too. It I can't do it on my own. It's not something that's easily done. It takes a group effort, and I guess learn as we learn as a team from winning. We learn as a team from losing, breaking things. It all goes into that as we learn from year after year.
Yeah. And dude, and I think it's important that people kind of see that side of things because first of all, I mean, it's interesting for me to see it, and I have some understanding because having a friend of mine in racing, you kind of see some of that stuff,
Mm.
but you want to believe that every racer just kind of is able to deal with it, move on, and then it's all hunky dory because um what I saw at Bark River, I mean, again, I don't know if you went back and watched it, but it's a pretty wicked roll, man. Like I'm sure if once you saw it, you could understand why people were, wanting to see like the
Yeah.
state of your buggy, checking to make sure that you're okay. Why, Caitlin was furious at you is because it was a pretty wicked fucking roll, man. Where I remember I watched, I'm like, oh no, Meister. I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, I hope he's okay. And then you like got out, like you're just like, oh man, like I kind of just fell off like a little bitty kid's bike, and I'm like, that's crazy, man. Like, wow. And I remember they like replayed it like slow motion. I'm like, the way everything turned, and like, I'm sure obviously a lot of stuff broke because it absorbed a lot of that energy that was going on for that tumble and roll. Which I mean, again, you ended up walking away with a few bruises, a little achy, but I mean, man, you were a beast after that. And the next time I saw you was fall Crandon for the parade. You had your buggy all together, man. She looked beautiful. She looked great. Saw nothing but bubblers everywhere. You dude, you're all smiles, man. It was good to see you. And I'm like, man, this kid's an animal, man. I'm like, he's had such a rough year, and he's here like at the parade, man. It's like it's the best thing ever. And and I'm not saying that you're putting on a front at that point, but it is cool to see though that there are struggles, man. That was a very hard season for you. The amount of time and effort that gets put into it, a lot of the thankless people, thankless hours, it seems like or feels like, where Mikey is just an absolute force, in this industry of things. So I think it's cool. I think it's great. I makes me feel cool or good to know that what Jeffrey and Lyle and us are doing, giving an opportunity to have racers share this with not only other racers and mechanics and stuff, but to the fans that show like, hey man, you guys aren't alone. A lot of people go through the same stuff. A lot of people have tough seasons. A lot of people to thank that go into even getting your buggy to Crandon because I mean, I'm sure there would have been a lot of people that just hung it up and been like, forget it. Not going to Crandon. That's a sign. That's a sign from the universe. But that fall Crandon though ended up going, from what I remember, pretty decent for you, right? Like, I
Mm.
think it went pretty
Yeah.
darn.
Yeah, no, it actually was, and it should have been better. It was just a thing that was missed. Uh, so let's see. So it was that cup race for the buggy trucks,
Oh yeah, the one that Trey
and
almost killed somebody.
yeah, yeah, poor Matt.
The
That was
alleged Trey Gibbs.
yeah. No, I so at that point I was watching the race in my drive. I didn't end up racing. Like it was where a caution happened the first lap, and we actually had to re-rack and do the land rush again. And so what was happening was from my Bark River crash, one of my fuel pump, like one of the lines going to a cylinder, was a little bit pulled from the rack yet. That it was just, the wire harness was looked over and gone through, but it was just like something little that was um, that was just, you know, looked over, and it was where I was only running on three cylinders for the cup race on Friday night. And it was funny because, you know, practice on Thursday or whatever, it was fine.
Yeah.
And then, you know, like, you know, maybe a little something got pulled, or it just got jostled around from that practice, to where, you know, we didn't know what the heck was going on. Like I was running on three cylinders, and I still remember, like, I'm either hit or miss on a land rush start. Like, you know, one person that's always spot on is Mark. Like, he has that land rush dialed.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
if you beat Mark out for a land rush, that's a lucky ass day for you. That's for sure. Like, he does really well with that, and honestly, a lot of the other guys too. Like, that'll be a battle. That'll be cool this year. You know, to everybody to line up and do it. But I'm hit and miss on it. Like, sometimes it's my shift from first to second is tough, because it's kind of like a lockout for our reverse and first gear, and then where we're using the clutch, and then everything else in our Fortin transmissions, it's where you're just banging gears. So it's just sometimes where I don't perfectly get the shift from first to second, and it just kind of like I lose like that, you know,
All
tenth of
that
a
momentum.
second or all that momentum. Yeah, exactly. It's like where you lose that forward drive, and that, you know, that just gaps everybody from there. But I remember for that cup race that first day, even though uh, my motor was sounding not good, and at that time I just didn't necessarily know I was running on three cylinders. I knew I was a little down on power, but we were going to try to make it work.
Yeah.
And my land rush start, that first one, was spot on. Like, I remember pulling out,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Oh, this is going to be money." And then everybody, I pulled out, and then everybody was like, "See ya."
Oh
So
man.
so, and then whatever happened to where that caused a caution, I was like, "Hey, I told Brad, this ain't gonna work out. We're at Crandon, man. We're going 90 miles an hour in our cars here. It ain't gonna happen. I don't have the motor. You know, maybe at a smaller track or something, you could have made it work or whatever, just to gain points. But obviously, that was more the expedition, or uh, exhibition race, and you know, going for the money. And there was just no shot, you know, with what was going on there. So I pulled into the pits and went up to watch in the grandstands with everybody else. And yeah, and then let's see,
That
that next.
that kind of reminds me of Final Destination, where you like, hey man, this is you make the decision. Had you decide to stay, I mean, who knows, man? That you might have been in, Matt Brister's position, where Trey Gibbs comes up and just, attempts to murder you, like right in front of everyone. So I mean, that's crazy, dude. So hey, dude, good call. That could have been you, and maybe it was maybe a little sign from the universe that a little blessing in disguise that happened on that exhibition race and not during, Saturday or Sunday or whatever it may be.
Right, yeah. No, I guess, yeah, looking back on it, like, hey, there's some them truck guys are, eh, they don't mind throwing some, laying some pipe from one to the next. So yeah, maybe it was a blessing in disguise from what ended up turning out there. But no, my buggy just wasn't there. It wasn't going to be competitive at all. So it was just, you had to just kind of retire it for that one.
Yeah.
Um, and then the next day it was running really well. Things were running really good, and I think I was rolling in second. It was like a lap or two left, and it would have been Larry Job. He was leading, and I think what ended up happening, but he just kind of like came to a stop, and I was right on his butt in gravel pit, and I tried to avoid him. Like, he kind of like stopped and kind of like turned sideways, and I tried to avoid him, and I clipped him with my one of my rear tires, and it punctured a hole in the tire. So, just, it kind of fit my season. Obviously, I was just like, hey, all right. I went out and grabbed it. I got another tire and went back out there. Um, So then for the cup race, or the Crandon Cup race on Sunday, like, I was very motivated, and I'm always motivated to try to do well. Like, if I'm going to be out there racing, I'm gonna give it 110%. Like, uh, my addiction in this is just like, man, I'm gonna try my absolute hardest. And Sunday we were just able to make it happen. It was where everything kind of aligned, thankfully, and I believe I just pulled a whole shot and just kind of ran away. And always for the Sunday race at Crandon for the fall weekend, being that there's a little more time and stuff for preparations of the track, they always have that track dialed for us. Ever since they've been doing the Crandon World Cup days, so I know my tire choice on that track is really good.
Yeah.
And as the race went on, I think there was even a caution or two. My tires just came in better and better as the track dried out, and I was just able to create a gap or keep my gap and kind of just cruising. Well, I wouldn't even say cruise because at Crandon, if you're not scaring yourself each lap, I don't think you're going fast enough.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I always push myself because it's when you in the back of my mind always it's like when you kind of hold back or kind of mail it in, that's when a mistake or even something might happen to where, and I didn't want any more things to happen that year than they already did. So I just kept pushing myself like yeah, it's kind of comfortable for me for pushing myself now. I'm comfortable in my buggy. I've had it for all these years. I know what it's going to do on this type of tire or this type of setup that we have in the car. So I was just comfortable there, and I've had, a lot of laps at Crandon now. So I just kind of knew what I needed to do. The track was awesome. Some of the best tracks that they have are on Sundays racing, and able to pull off that win, and God, that was awesome. Just to do well again, just to be on top of the box again was the best feeling ever. um, I to be honest, the money after all the cost and stuff that I was able to win after all that Bark River crash and all the money that was spent to fix it there, I was very thankful to be able to put some money back into my account that way,
Yeah.
or even pay uh more for what I was paying for the Bark River stuff. So yeah, everything worked out really well, and I'm very thankful for everything that happened there. And well, I guess then I guess we went to Oklahoma after that too, and that was a fun place. Um, even with the unforgiving weather, it was still a
Yeah.
blast to go out to somewhere different, and
Yeah.
the track could have been even better, but it was still fun to race
Yeah.
against everybody there.
Yeah, that's one of those roll the dice kind of things where like it was cool to go, a shame that it rained, and just unfortunate that the track wasn't necessarily built to drain, well, or wasn't necessarily even, I guess, thought of, right? I mean, people don't really think about that when they think about putting a track together. Okay, what happens if it rains? How does it drain out? How does it do this? That's where I give a lot of credit to Lena, is they built
Mm.
that track, man. I remember it rained one day and we're like, there's no shot we're racing today. And then by I think the middle of like your buggy race, it was like drying out and there's like dust. I'm like, there's no way you'd convince me that I'm seeing dust today after the storm that came through and essentially blew everyone's awnings away. So
Mhm.
definitely something that you know tracks need to consider. I mean, I'm sure you don't, but um, you know, uh, uh, for fall Crandon, when you're going all out, do you hit turn one flat footed?
Absolutely, yeah,
See,
for
thank you.
sure.
A lot
Yeah,
of
yeah.
people hit it flat footed, just totally doable.
No, it's so like for Crandon's our fastest track, obviously, that we race on. And I have a transmission specifically geared for that track, and I believe it's geared for like 92 miles an hour there.
Hmm.
And it's funny to as the years go by, Like it's where it depends on your tire height and stuff too, because that changes your gear splits, and just how fast you get going at the end. But it's where some days where you're hitting the rev limiter, and then some years you're not, or you're just creeping into it. But yeah, so I'd say like we're going like 90 miles an hour through turn one. And what's specific with our buggies, like in the pro buggy class, is they're called like a turning brake or a cutting brake. And that what that means, it's right next to your shifter, and you push on it, and it locks up your left rear, and you pull on it the opposite way, and it locks up the right rear. And being that our buggies are like 70% in the rear end for weight, like they're very front end light, so they need a little, and and then they're really wide too. Like
Yep.
we're close to like 90 inches wide or something silly like that. So they're as wide as like some like a Pro Tour or something. It's nuts. Um, but yeah, it's where that turning brake kind of helps you initiate a turn, or even like uh, keep you low into a corner, kind of keep you in your skid around one corner, and even helps you if you start to over rotate, it can help you correct too. Like I've plenty of times like where shoot, it's even been at turn one in Cranon where I'm sideways in turn one, and you flat foot the gas pedal, and you rip it, and you just kind of learn which way to kind of correct your car over the years. But you pull it or push it to whatever you need, and it kind of pulls you back out. It kind of it spools up the one tire that's not locked out, and kind of pulls you back straight. um, so instead of like say over rotating in one of the truck classes or whatever, like you're kind of screwed, like where you
Yeah.
just over rotate. At
Yep.
least our buggies kind of have like an emergency help, like where all right, you can maybe get it kind of cutting back straight. So that's and talking about the cutting brake, like I use that thing constantly. And
Yeah.
like going back to talking about turn one, I'm using that thing in turn one to just keep myself tight to that blue concrete wall, and to just keep myself kind of going straight while I'm still flat footed. Um, so it's just little things that I've learned over the years. Like when I started, I didn't use it near as much. And now I think it's one of the things in our class that kind of gets you to that next level, or gets you more competitive. Do you still hear me?
Yeah. Hold on. Let me see.
Sorry, there was a call coming through. It
Okay.
started.
Let me see. Okay. Yep. Okay. Yep. Keep going. Sorry, it
Okay.
just notified me. It was like, oh, it's
Okay.
stopped. It's
Sorry about
transmitting.
that.
No worries. No worries.
Um, but yeah, it's just where the that cutting brake I've really leaned on, and it seemed to have been a really big part of me inside the buggy. As far as being a little faster, being I don't know. Like it seems like I'm able to get down into the corners a little lower than some other guys, and a lot of that's based on tires and stuff too. Like, what's really interesting now, if you'd be interested in talking about, is tires on our buggies, like where it's transitioned from like all-terrain tires, like a taller, narrower tire, into like mainly what I run now is they're called like a radial tire. It's I don't even know. They're like 12 inches wide. There's a lot more contact patch on the ground, a little shorter tread height. Um, but and then we groove them up just to kind of create more traction, and it's able to where my radial tire is able to kind of skid around and kind of stay on more of like the slicked off parts of the track, instead of going and having to go up on the cushion, say like other classes have to go and kind of hunt the cushion. Like I guess between the cutting brake and some of the tires that I run, I'm able to kind of go anywhere that I please for the most part, and that depends. Like some tracks are better than others on that. Um, but yeah, it's just kind of And maybe that kind of ties into the RC side of things too, where you're not going to pass somebody if you're following them. So it's
Yeah.
where, you know, you try to dive up on the inside or take different lines going around the corners or just the track itself in a different spot. And hopefully, like, you can kind of run in your own race line to maybe that would kind of help you in the future as the race went on. So it's just little things that I try to do, or I don't know. I've had good luck with things that I've tried, and you know, it's just kind of the fact of just kind of sticking or throwing stuff at the wall and seeing if it sticks. And some hasn't, some has, and I've learned from it.
So it sounds like I'm so used to calling it super buggy just off the fly at the top
Hmm.
of my head.
Right.
It sounds like there's a lot going on in pro buggy, and that if you are a talented individual, you know, pro buggy seems to be the route to go. But if you can't handle, you know, clutches and you know, cutting brakes and being able to get around people without putting doors on it, you know, maybe try to go to the truck class, right? Just a bunch of bums in those classes where they rely on, you know, no open wheel contact. They're all using doors, you know. I mean, Ricky G, right? Ricky G, the third guy,
Oh,
Ricky G.
geez.
But no, there is a lot that goes into, you know, pro buggy, and it is a very difficult, tough class, I think, to drive. I mean, it's just first off, just it being open wheel is difficult enough as it is. Some of the UTVs get a little taste of it as
Yep.
well. Being buggy though, we've all driven trucks where right we go around, we whip shitties, we understand how the back end works and how you're able to, you know, feather the throttle and chase the cushion. But buggy is a whole different entity, you know, a whole different class in and of itself with how you get around, how you keep the back end around, how you're able to, like you said, some people chase the cushion. You're fortunate enough to be able to have that thing dialed in to put it where it needs to go. And you know, a lot of that weight is at the back, but it's built differently, right? It's not a truck.
Right.
It's not like what most people drive. So it is a talent. I do give a lot of credit to the people that drive it really well. I mean, some people can go out there and you know, I guess get around, but to be able to competitively do it and have, you know, the talent that was there last year, I think hopefully doesn't get taken for granted. I hope a lot more people enjoyed Pro Buggy, and I do look forward to Pro Buggy this year. Um, I'm interested to see how Pro Spec goes as well, just because Pro Spec again, we've stated that we think that Pro Spec was the most entertaining class last year. Next was Pro Buggy though. Pro Buggy was right there. I mean, I'm sure
Mm.
I'd kind of written it off to a lot of people beforehand, but for it to kind of revitalize, rejuvenize itself, I think is great. I look forward to it. I look forward to stop Pro Spec, you know, Pro Buggy. You're always going to have interest in Pro 4, Pro 2, you know, Pro Light. Turbo, I guess, is a lot of names in it to see how things go. Pro Stock is, dude, that's bottom tier stuff, right? Is CJ goes out there, he wins, and it's just, you know, a yawn fest as far as it goes. So, you know, we're hoping that Pro Buggy maybe takes that step, you know, to the next level. Unless you yourself, I mean, hey, unless it goes extremely well for you and you win every race and you jet
Uh,
Lord shit out of the Pro Buggy class, where it's like, all right, here comes, you
uh,
know, Meister, but
Here we go.
no, but all jokes aside though, I am excited that you're back, man. I'm excited to see you. Excited for Wheatland. I'm excited to see you go against, you know, the burn lowers. You know, Jordan, obviously a great talent. You know, Cole, I'm hoping is going to be more of a force. Not saying that he wasn't, because he did win a race at ERX. He
No,
has,
absolutely.
but
Yeah.
it just seemed like at times I'm like, you see what he's capable of. You want to see more from him. I think I don't know about Billy Booth. I think he's coming back. I think for a full year. I was gonna wear my Billy Booth shirt today, but I it's dirty. I got to do laundry and I got to wash it. But I was gonna wear it. But I mean, Billy Booth. That's the only pro buggy shirt that I have. So I guess I'll just have to
Mm.
wear that bad boy, for the portion of the year. But
Oh, really? I don't
yeah,
know. I'm trying to find some people to do some designs for some shirts, so maybe Tito here needs to get one.
hey man, I hands up. I think so. Maybe so. But no. Is there anything else that you wanna touch on, Mr. Meister? The only reason I ask, I obviously when it comes to talking to you guys, man, we can talk for hours. We could talk for another hour. We could talk forever. But unfortunately, I am cutting into my day job, and I have
Oh,
a
shoot. Okay.
meeting at 10. So, fun
Okay.
fact, everyone, we're doing this pretty early this morning. We started at 8 a.m. And obviously, you've got stuff to do. I've got a meeting to get to, but we make it happen. And I guess, is there anything else you want to touch on before we wrap this thing up?
I was just gonna say, like for the buggy class itself, it's been it seems like it's a great stepping stone class, like say even for younger drivers, like whether it be like I don't know, say from like the kids cart stuff and even like guys getting into light buggy or like you get people that'll go like straight into like a truck class or you get people going into a buggy and I really think it teaches a younger person the the respect that these well regardless of class but the respect that you need to be racing against other competitors because you're right like you're saying that's open wheel similar to the UTVs too like where it wouldn't take much for things to go bad, like we've seen occasionally, like where you just get tangled up in each other, and yeah, and then we're going just as fast. Like I've heard that some of the pro spec guys, like yeah, we're flying, we're faster than the buggies, but yeah, I want to say like that's not true, man. Look at the lap times. A lot of the places we're rolling a little faster. We don't sound as cool because we got little four bangers going on, but
Yeah.
we're rolling. I remember that one year I would have been qualified second in Pro two times at Bark River one year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that was for qualifying. It was a good track and everything, but
Yes.
I'll always remember that. Like, there's just, I just have like little motivating factors that I keep in the back of my head, and it just kind of helps me drive. And but yeah, I look forward to. I'll let you get going, but yeah, I just look forward to the beginning of the season here, and I guess just seeing where things go. It'll be great to be back amongst everybody else. Like I know I've heard from some people like I'm excited for you to be back at whatever capacity that is, and
100%.
uh, yeah, I'm looking forward to Wheatland because regardless of weather there, like when we were there, it was awesome first day of racing that few years ago, and then it rained overnight, and they weren't even sure it was gonna be race ready, and it was still awesome racing. It was just like kind of wet and sloppy on top, but it wasn't like a heavy mud or anything. So I think regardless, it'll be solid. It'll be a different racing conditions than what everybody's used to, and it's a perfect track. It's nice and tight and technical in the center, and then you got this big openness around the outside and the big jumps and everything. So I'm looking forward to that and racing against everybody else like we've talked about the last little bit here, like just racing against all the new buggy guys and just continuing racing against everybody else. Everybody's getting faster. Everybody's stepping up their programs, and I just look forward to being back in the mix, at least for the beginning.
Yeah, dude, I'm so excited for Wheatland. I can't wait to go. It's gonna be my first time, so we're anxious to see how things pan out. And before we go, maybe something to sit on, think about, maybe potentially see how it goes. Is you're out here talking about how the pro specs slow, right? They're just bums. Nick Viss. No, I'm kidding. But dude, how cool would it be? Maybe something to think about. Crandon does the pro buggy versus pro light. What if?
I
What
feel
if?
like that would be a better matchup
Oh,
because I
buggy
feel
versus.
like the splits are going to be shorter, so it's like going to be tighter racing more immediately.
What a okay, maybe this is just absolute just chaos. Buggies, right? Send them. Specs, send them, and then the pro lights. Would
Oh
it be
boy.
too many? Would you have to do like heats qualifying? Would you do top five buggy, top five spec, top five pro light? I mean, you know,
Yeah,
what's the deal here? I
potentially.
mean, we've never. I don't think we've ever seen anything like that. Kind of, I guess. It was Pro Two versus Pro Four. You'd send the East Coast Pro Twos, West Coast Pro Twos, and then the Pro Fours. So it's
Oh,
possible,
sure. Yeah, that's true. Yep.
wholeheartedly possible. But
Yep, that's true. They did the three. Yeah, I guess it depends on the car count on that, but no, that would be actually cool because I'm sure the pro spec guys, feel a little left out, and I understand. I mean, I think they just have as much reason to be in that race as like a pro light does or whatever. Like, yeah, maybe it'd be where maybe what would you do? Like maybe a top 10 from each class or something like that. Like, yeah, something. I think it would
yeah,
be
for
cool for Crandon
percentages.
to, yeah, for Crandon to maybe figure that out. I think that'd be damn entertaining.
Yeah, or like seven buggies and five
Sure.
specs and seven pro lights or something like that. Because then you've got 19 on the track or 20, whatever it may be. But I
Hmm.
think that would that'd be something to think about, sit on. I mean, shoot, maybe I'll ask Jason or Marty and be like, hey, hear me out.
Right, right.
You
No, it's
want
not a
you
bad
want
idea. Yeah, absolutely. It sounds scary as far as being in a buggy, absolutely, especially because we know what can happen. But hey, I'm down to race against some guys. Yeah.
yeah, as long as you keep Trey Gibbs out of there, I think you're going to have yourself a really good race. You know, the alleged, the
Yeah.
alleged. So, Mr. Meister, thank you so much, man, for taking time out of your day, dude. Starting it early with us. Taking time out of your morning to get into your workday, dude. We really appreciate it. I really appreciate you. Just before we sign off here, just a reminder. Do we still got merch available? It is being sent out. Jeffrey is packaging and sending it out. So be sure to go there. Do we have the new sweatshirts again? They're just as long as our independent ones that we had before. Half inch shorter, right? We all know that matters. But they're still longer. They're still fluffy. They're still comfortable. These are probably the most comfortable sweatshirts I have ever worn. Just as long, dude. They're very relaxed. They run maybe a little bit big. So if you're teetering where maybe an extra large is already maybe a little big on you, maybe try a large. Don't quote me on that. Take the risk. But sweatshirts, we got hats, anything that you need, off-season show, impulse, uh, friggin' what else do we got? ZFC, Zero Fun Crew, man. I encourage people. Jeffrey might not like this when he hears this, but buy something ZFC. Go do something crazy, man. Let us know that you don't have fun. Let us know. Go steal. Oh, you know what? I better not say that. I better not say that. Go. I don't know. Go steal a moment. And make yourself happy. But that's it. Go do the merch. We're still giving away the Edgerton Cooper hat. We actually got to go through some stuff, and if we miss somebody, we're gonna end up sending that out. But four things of Edgerton Cooper signed by him. And that's about it, man. And again, Michael Meister, thank you so much, man.
Oh, thank you for having me on. Thank you for making this time work. I'm hoping that I'm gonna get back to work here. It's been a goofy week and a half here as far as spring goes. So hopefully we can get back working. We just got to travel a little further south. So yeah, hopefully I can make it happen and meet with this landowner here and get back to making money.
Hey, that's what it's about. It's making
Yeah.
that money. All right, Mr. Meister, thank you so much, man. We appreciate it.
Thank you, boys. I appreciate it.
All right. All right.